These are typical scenes in the home port of vessels serving offshore installations. One of the jobs these vessels are used for is laying anchors to secure an offshore installation in position. Anchor handling is a complex and exacting task. To achieve success, thorough preparation is required and a clear understanding of what the work entails. But no matter how complex or urgent the job, it has to wait for suitable weather. Thorough preparation work on board the vessel should start as soon as the advance copy of the rig movement procedures from the charterers arrives on board to notify the vessel of the operation details. In addition to their scheduled maintenance program, engineers must make sure that the main engines, generators, winches and hydraulic systems are in top working condition. The vessel must be very maneuverable for any anchor handling job to be done safely. And the winches and hydraulics that power the pins and jaws must function reliably. Decks should be made free of obstructions. Ideally, the marine representative of the charterer and the master of the vessel should meet face to face before the vessel sets off for the rig to ensure that each detail of the job is discussed thoroughly, even though an advance copy has been sent to the vessel.
Right. Jack baits, appropriate locations.
This meeting starts a vital chain of communication between the marine rep, the master, and other members of the team on board the vessel. Invariably, there are last-minute changes to requirements, and this is the safest way to bring everybody up to date.
There's just one thing, like we'll have to complete a risk assessment for cutting and securing the wire when we pass them back to the rig. Is there any procedures for that?
Okay, yeah, good point, Ali.
They go through the details of the plan together, making sure that they understand the operation and are aware of each other's problem areas. To be safe, these men must be of the same mind about the job in hand. Knowing what the job involves, the master can ensure that the vessel has all the right equipment on board and sufficient wire and chain available to do the job. The meeting may identify additional equipment requirements which can be acted upon before the vessel leaves port. Extra wires, links, a grapple, for example, to help recover a lost or parted pennant. It is time to head out to sea. Everyone on board is now confident that they will arrive at the rig ready to do the job safely and efficiently, weather and currents permitting. They have prepared well, and everyone is fully aware of their role in the team. The primary concern of the master about weather is not focused on rain or fog, provided these do not impair visibility beyond safe limits. His task is more influenced by the strength of wind and currents and the resulting wave heights and general sea state. Seafarers working on an anchor handling vessel, or AHV, for the first time quickly realize that it's a very different experience from that on board a large, ocean-going vessel due to its more instant reaction to sea conditions. During the voyage to the rig, the master discusses the latest information with his fellow officers.
Now, and we've already got some changes to the procedures, but it's Jack Bates, as you know. He's moving from drill centre 1 to drill centre 2. It's about 5 kilometre move. The procedures indicate that the lift of the anchors will take about 24 hours.
No two anchor handling jobs are the same. The hazards are similar, but the moves to deal with them vary from case to case. For example, the presence of piggyback anchors provides additional risks, while pipelines and other subsea structures may make the positioning of the vessel more exacting.
One of those chains has to be renewed.
A piggyback anchor is a second anchor deployed behind the main anchor to provide additional secure hold in the seabed. Some of the most efficient anchors in use today include the Stevpre 15-ton, the Bruce twin shanks, and the Danforth 15-ton.
Number 6 chain is the one to be changed out, so we'll just, as normal, chase out to the anchors. Mike has prepared the normal risk assessments. As normal, if you, Ben and Jez, you can do the normal toolbox talks with the guys as you're starting. One of the things
a risk assessment process begins, concentrating on the safety aspects of the operations.
Before we have to be very careful that
this process includes every member of the team who will be involved in the job.
The rig's going to be moving, so there could be quite a movement on the hook. Control measures for that. Clear signals. Don't drop the pin until the weight is off the crane. Ensure the correct lead, as straight lead as possible. Watch out for bites in the wire.
So far, everything is going according to plan. Arriving at the rig, the master has obtained permission to enter the 500-meter zone. At this stage, they make a final weather check to try to ensure that conditions will not become so bad that the operation will be unsafe. They should agree to postpone the operation if the forecast is unfavorable. The marine rep on the rig and the master on the vessel agree on weather contingencies, just in case. They also agree on initial procedure. This job begins early in the morning, and the rig is blanketed in fog. But as visibility is sufficient to carry out the job safely, anchor lifting normally involves the use of a chaser. The task is to position the chaser onto the anchor and release the anchor from the seabed. First, the vessel is brought very close to the rig, and the master must consider the risk factors of wind force and current strength. The crane lowers the pennant, and the crew recover it and place it in the hydraulic jaws.
Thanks, Pete. South to southeast 8 to 12.
The work wire is secured to the pennant and is then ready for towing the chaser onto the anchor. These links and shackles are very heavy, and moving them represents a hazard. Safety must come before haste. The critical safety issue is that no crew member should be on deck when the work wire is under tension. The process of lifting the anchor begins. The master agrees with the marine rep that this can now be done. He begins to move the vessel away from the rig. Phase 1 of the operation is to tow the chaser along the anchor chain right up to the anchor. The master navigates the vessel along the anchor chain, and the chief engineer or another officer controls the winch. The tension rises in the work wire when the chaser reaches the anchor. At this point, the vessel tends to vibrate more as a result. As the vessel increases power, the anchor is eventually released from under the seabed. The officer in charge of the winches may also monitor this process by the use of instruments, if available, displaying the tension in the wires and the winch load. Once the anchor is out of the seabed, the added vibration stops, and the instruments clearly indicate the drop in winch load. Now, the actual lifting phase begins. From now on, both anchor chain and chaser wire must be tensioned in coordination to achieve the required lift. On the bridge, the vessel and rig exchange information as they coordinate their moves to tension the wires. The master positions the vessel as required. The rig tensions the mooring chain, while the vessel keeps the chaser wire at the required tension and recovers it. This is done by slowly moving towards the rig and at the same time winding in the work wire.
Right, okay, well we've got the pennant over the roller, so we'll just stop there. If you give us a call back when we've got the wire in.
Normally, the anchor is delivered to the rig for placing onto the rack. The vessel holds the anchor just below the water, and the rig takes up the anchor chain. The vessel releases the pennant, and the winch driver on the rig pulls the anchor into position on the rack. This is the second time the vessel has to be positioned very close to the rig, with all the risks this creates. Overcoming wind and current is even more important now. On occasions, the anchor must be brought up on deck for inspection, for modification to suit a different soil type at its new destination, for separating it from its piggyback anchor, or for replacing it altogether. A toolbox meeting on deck communicates the critical safety issues of the tasks ahead and identifies new ones, including the personal protective equipment requirements.
We'll be decking this anchor, number 7. I brought the risk assessment down to show you. We've gone through the main hazards identified: adverse weather, moving objects, shark's jaw operations. What will happen is we'll bring the anchor on deck, the jaws will be locked from the bridge, and then I'll visually check the red lines, and then I shall turn it down, and then that's mechanically locked so they can't release it in any way. That stops them accidentally activate the jaws there.
The process of lifting the anchor off the seabed is the same up to the point when the anchor is hanging off just below the rollers. First, the vessel is brought very close to the rig. Near the rollers, crew members must be cautious when handling crane hooks. The crane lowers the pennant, and the crew recover it and place it in the hydraulic jaws. The work wire is secured to the pennant and is then ready for towing the chaser onto the anchor. The crew must withdraw to a safe area, as there is a high risk of wires parting or other dangerous situations occurring during this maneuver. The job of lifting the anchor begins. To position the anchor on deck, it must be lifted in the right way to prevent it from damaging the propellers, the hull, or itself. The master attempts to pull the anchor on board. The chaser lands correctly. But the anchor is not oriented the right way. It is lowered back into the water, and the vessel moved so that the wash can get rid of some of the mud which appears to be preventing it from turning the right way for decking.
Number 6.
The master discusses the situation with the marine rep.
On its side, it's just coming up onto the roller and completely the wrong way around, 180 degrees out.
Okay, so is that 200 metres, confirm?
Yeah, if you come into, that'll be about 500 metres out, shearing out, is it?
Yeah, so we're working in feet here, so this converter will stay taking that in for you, sir.
Okay, cheers.
They decide to have another go.
Right, nudge it again, please, Dave. I'll try and skid it across there.
On the second attempt, although still not quite right, the master decides it can be decked safely without damage. Once the anchor is resting on deck, the tension in the wires can be reduced, and the anchor can then be positioned for inspection or for safe transportation.
Number 7 winch, Peter.
Peter, number 7.
Okay, that's the anchor on deck. It hasn't come up the right way. It's on one of its flukes and one of the wings, but loads were pretty low when it came up. Everything's all right with it.
Here, the anchor chain is disconnected in the jaws, and the anchor is moved with the use of tugger winches. Handling very heavy fittings and the use of a number of tugger wires represent additional risks for the crew. So far, we have seen anchor handling being carried out by one vessel. In very deep waters, another vessel is sometimes employed to assist with the far greater weights of chain involved. In deep waters, 1,000 meters or more, 2 other operations add complexity to the task. Extension wires and chains may need to be added to create the required length of lines, usually in the region of 1.5 times the depth of water. Then, the extra weight of the chains must be supported by one vessel, while the other lifts the anchor. The same method may be used to control the chain near pipelines and other structures. This lifting requires a 3-way communication channel. Each master and the marine rep must synchronize every move involved. Progress is slower and requires greater concentration on the part of everyone. Several chain lengths may be involved in the recovery, and taking a chain out of service and changing over to another winch is a very hazardous operation. The chains are under considerable tension, which must be released before separation. If wires are involved, these may twist as the tension is released, and any shackles or other fittings can spin violently in the process. To reduce such a risk, swivels are fitted in line to release the twist in the wires. On deck, personnel must be kept well away from the hydraulic jaws until the tension is completely released. When the rig arrives at its destination, the anchors will be placed at their new location. At the start of this process, the vessel is maneuvered close to the rig to collect the chaser wire and the anchor. The prevailing winds and currents will move the vessel, and the master's attention will be centered on controlling her against these forces. This operation should only be done in the most favorable weather conditions. If the anchor was decked before, it is now reconnected to the anchor chain and lowered into the water. Once the anchor is hung off, the vessel heads for the agreed location. The rig pays out the anchor chain until the vessel is in position.
Okay, all copy.
The line is tensioned, and the rig instructs the vessel to lower the anchor. The anchor is lowered with the chaser wire. Once the anchor lands on the seabed, the vessel continues to pay out the wire to 1.5 times the water depth. The rig then starts to tension the anchor chain to ensure that the anchor is fully embedded. To finish the job, the vessel returns the chaser and its pennant to the rig before heading for her home port. With operations successfully completed, the deep concentration required from all concerned can be relaxed. The guiding principles for success have been clearly demonstrated. Thorough preparation of the vessel and all the equipment needed. Waiting for the right weather conditions before operations begin. Understanding every detail involved. Ensuring clear communication at every stage. And maintaining continuous risk assessment throughout.
And then I'll visually check the red line.
If these principles are followed, then anchor handling will be safe and successful. For further information, please study the booklet supplied with this video.